We're talking another very common running injury today, and it is another one of those super frustrating ones. Talking about plantar fasciitis. It is extremely painful. It can come at any time, and we're going to talk all about what causes it, what you can do to treat it, and most importantly, what you can do to avoid it. That's all coming up on today's video. My name is Brad. We're heading over to the coach, Lindsey Parry, next. We're chatting another very common runner's injury today, and we're talking about plantar fasciitis. It is a mouthful, but it is very, very common. Lindsey, before we get into what we can do to treat it and prevent it, let's touch on what it is. For somebody who's not 100% sure what it is, can you explain in layman's terms what is plantar fasciitis?
I can, Brad, and it's actually all in the name. So plantar, which is the underside of your foot, and fascia, it's the fascia or tendon that runs from pretty much the bottom of your heel, so right at the front side of your heel, and it runs the length of your foot. And its job, quite simply, is to hold our bridge in a good position so it stops our foot from collapsing completely. That is what the plantar fascia is, and plantar fasciitis is when that plantar becomes injured, irritated, but essentially you have a sore underside of your foot on that tendon, and because it's tendon, it is slow to heal. Often it'll start out often as it starts to get really tender and stiff and sore when we wake up in the morning, and then once we get going and we warmed up, you don't really feel it again. But often it does progress to the point where, if left untreated, it progresses to the point where it then becomes really sore and irritated while we're running.
Lindsey, what causes it? Is that the million-dollar question?
There are a couple of things that cause it. Look, like with most injuries, there's very seldom one single thing that causes it. So if you are doing things that cause it to be put under too much pressure, things like running in shoes that are done, or shoes that do not have enough support. If a shoe is too soft, in other words, the shoe completely gives way and then it allows that foot to completely compress. Running long distances on a beach, for example, if you haven't run on the beach regularly and then you suddenly go and throw 20 Ks, running on that soft sand will cause your foot to flare and to put strain on that plantar fascia. Any major inflexibilities in the plantar fascia can become tight over time. They can become weak, so we do need to work on those muscles under the foot to help support that plantar fascia. Any real tightness in the soleus in particular, but the calf muscles, all of those things will put pressure on the foot. And when there's pressure on the foot, pressure goes onto the plantar fascia. So the things that we can do to obviously prevent, I feel like I've been saying this for a couple of weeks in a row now, but obviously doing strength training and making sure that we look after the whole limb system from the hips and down will contribute to taking pressure off the foot and therefore off the plantar fascia, making sure that you are in the correct pair of running shoes for what you are doing. And then if it does become irritated, we can reduce that inflammation by filling a bottle up with water, chucking in the freezer and freezing that, and then giving the foot a really good ice massage. You can go to toy store and buy quite a firm spiky, or if you can't get a spiky ball, you just get a normal ball, and you really get into that plantar fascia and roll the foot over and round and around the toes and just behind the heel and down the side of the foot, and building up slowly over time. But it's one of those injuries that if you do get it, you're probably in for at least a couple of days of rest and get it treated. It does respond well to rest, but it, just like other tendon injuries, it probably won't go away with only rest.
Lindsey, it's one of those frustrating injuries that stick. It does. I mean, even with treatment, it tends to stick around for a long time if you keep running through it. You mentioned the rest. It's a four-letter word that runners hate hearing. But is this one of those injuries that you don't want to mess around with, because if you don't sort it out, it is going to be with you for a long, long time?
Yeah, if it becomes chronic, it really is, it becomes a real irritation. So it's one of those injuries we do want to try and avoid it becoming chronic. So we definitely don't want to run through it. And look, like with a lot of injuries, pinpointing why or what's causing the injury is normally the key to sorting it out. And plantar fasciitis is one of the things that's actually difficult to pinpoint exactly what's causing it, because it can be caused by so many different chinks in the chain. So again, go to a good physiotherapist with experience in sports injuries, and if you can pinpoint where it's coming from and why it came, then you can actually get rid of it quickly. And similarly, if you treat it early, so if you go and have physiotherapy early, you really can get rid of plantar fasciitis quite quickly. If you leave it and it becomes chronic, it's something that can stay with you for a long time. And in fact, you can get quite serious thickening of that plantar fasciitis. And if that happens, it's something that can really be with you for years, not just weeks and months. It can really be difficult to get rid of.
Yeah, and that's the last thing you want. And then finally, Lindsey, orthotics, would they play a role in preventing, if you struggled with it, would getting orthotics perhaps help?
So look, I'm not sure how I would use them as a preventative measure, but absolutely, once you have plantar fasciitis, if you do get a proper assessment from a physiotherapist, there absolutely are cases where orthotics are indicated for this kind of injury. If you've got really flat feet, for example, you can strengthen your plantar fascia by putting your feet on top of a towel on a slippery surface like a tiled floor, and then do essentially bicep curls for the feet by dragging that towel underneath there, and really strengthen that plantar fascia up. But if you really have flat feet, you're always going to be predisposed to this kind of injury. And in those instances, extremely poor mechanics and flat feet, if you've got that combination, then you probably do need some kind of insert or orthotic to treat it, get it better, and to allow it to carry on running without it coming back.
Thanks for joining us on this video. Don't forget, if you don't want to miss any of these videos that we put out, hit the subscribe button over here. You can catch our latest video over here, and one of our most popular is over here. And also, if you want to shave 10 minutes off your PB, all you need to do is download our free strength training program. You can get that right here.